test scores are up. Dropout rates are down. Every student in every country, in every income bracket, is finally getting access to a perfectly patient, perfectly knowledgeable, perfectly consistent teacher. No burnout, no favoritism, no bad days. By every measurable metric, the global education system is the best it has ever been in human history. So why are psychiatrists reporting a generational crisis? Why are career counselors overwhelmed with 22-year-olds who have no idea what they want to do with their lives? Not because they failed at school, but because they were too good at all of it. Why are employers noticing that the most qualified generation ever produced seems to be the least passionate one? Here's the answer nobody in the education technology industry wants to say out loud. We optimized for performance, and in doing so, we accidentally deleted the part of school that actually mattered. The transition didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen because of malice. It happened because of a very reasonable chain of logic. Teachers were underpaid, overworked, and unevenly distributed. A brilliant educator in a wealthy suburb versus an exhausted substitute in an underfunded rural school meant that the quality of your entire life could be decided by your zip code. AI changed that equation. Robot teachers, AI-driven teaching systems embodied in humanoid classroom assistants, could be deployed anywhere. They never got tired. They adapted in real time to each student's learning pace. They remembered every mistake a student made and adjusted accordingly. Early results were staggering. Within 5 years of widespread adoption, average test scores rose by 31% globally. The gap between wealthy and poor students narrowed dramatically. It was celebrated as one of the greatest achievements in human development. And it was. The problem just hadn't revealed itself yet. To understand what went wrong, you have to understand what being taught by a robot actually feels like, from the inside. Imagine every single class you attend is run by someone who is perfectly calm, always fair, always clear. They explain things in exactly the right order. They never go on a tangent. They never get visibly excited about something off topic. They never tell you a story about their own life that somehow makes the lesson click in a way the textbook never could. They don't have a weird obsession with a specific era of history that becomes contagious. They don't tear up reading a poem they love. They don't slam a hand on the desk when a student finally grasps something they've been struggling with for weeks. Every lesson is structured. Every lesson is paced. Every lesson is, and this is the word students kept using in surveys, fine. Not bad, not boring exactly, just fine. And when every subject is delivered with the same measured, optimized energy, something subtle but devastating happens. Nothing stands out. Nothing pulls at you. Nothing feels like it belongs to you specifically. Here's something the education technology companies did not model into their projections, because it's almost impossible to quantify. Research in developmental psychology has shown for decades that the single most influential factor in whether a young person pursues a particular field is not aptitude, and it's not even interest. It's a person. A specific human being who, at a specific moment, made that subject feel alive. A physics teacher who described the formation of stars like it was the most urgent thing in the world. A literature teacher who read a passage aloud with so much feeling that a 15-year-old in the back row suddenly understood that words could do something to you. A history teacher who connected a moment from 300 years ago to something happening in the student's neighborhood right now, and in doing so, made that student feel like the past was real and the present was consequential. These moments are not replicable by an optimized system. They require a human being with a specific history, specific passions, specific wounds, specific joys, and the complete unpredictability of two humans being in the same room at the same time. You cannot train a robot to have a formative influence on a child. You can only train it to teach. The first generation to go through fully robotized schooling graduated with remarkable credentials and a quiet, pervasive emptiness. Career counselors began noticing it around the time these students hit their early 20s. They would sit across from a young person who had perfect grades across every subject and ask the standard question, "What did you love in school?" And the student would pause. Not dramatically, just pause. And then say something like, "I was good at all of it," which sounds like a great problem to have, except that being good at everything when nothing ever grabbed you emotionally, when no teacher ever made one subject feel more electric than the rest, leaves you standing at the entrance of adult life with a very clean resume and absolutely no compass. Some chose careers based on salary data. Some chose based on what their parents suggested. Many cycled through 2 or 3 career paths in their late 20s, searching for something that felt like a calling. The robot teacher had been perfectly fair to every subject, and that fairness had made every subject feel the same. Now, and this is important, we cannot pretend the robots didn't solve real problems, because they did. A child in a remote village who now has access to a world-class teaching system is not a hypothetical. That happened. The closure of the educational gap between the richest and poorest students on Earth is a genuine moral achievement, and dismissing it because of what was lost would be dishonest. There's also the question of abuse. Human teachers, precisely because they are human, have also been the source of some of the most damaging experiences students carry into adulthood. Favoritism that crushed confidence, humiliation in front of peers, biases that told certain students they weren't capable before they'd had a chance to try. A robot teacher will never make a student feel stupid for asking a question. These are not small things. So the honest position is not, robot teachers are bad. The honest position is, we gained something enormous, and we lost something enormous, and we made that trade without fully understanding what we were giving up. Because the thing we gave up doesn't show up on any test. There is a teacher somewhere in your past, maybe a name you haven't thought about in years, who changed the direction of something in you. Maybe they made you love reading. Maybe they made you realize you were good at something you'd never tried. Maybe they just looked at you one afternoon and said something so specific, so human, so unscripted, that it rearranged something quietly inside you. That teacher was inefficient. They probably went off curriculum. They definitely had favorites sometimes. They had bad days and showed it. They were, by every optimization metric, an imperfect system. And they may have been the most important person in your education. The question this generation of students is now living inside, without having chosen it, is whether perfect instruction and genuine inspiration can coexist in the same system. So far, the evidence suggests they cannot. And as we hand more classrooms over to machines that can teach everything flawlessly, we should ask ourselves very seriously, what is school actually for? Is it to produce competent adults? Or is it to produce people who know what they're alive for? Because those might require very different teachers. The same question is being asked in a different room right now. What happens when the machine doesn't just replace the teacher, but the artist? That's what The Last Human Artist is about.